All right, welcome back, folks. This is Snorkeling in Maui, your half a day full of .NET Maui goodness, and I'm ready to bring on my next speaker in the agenda, my good friend Brandon. Hey,
Hey Sam, good to see you again.
good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for hopping on, and thanks for waiting patiently. We're running just a tad late. Everyone is so passionate. We just want to keep on talking, but we're trying to pack everything we can in a day. How are you,
Yeah.
friend?
Oh, doing well, doing well. We've got the release of .NET MAUI right around the corner, which means we're also releasing the .NET MAUI Community Toolkits
Mm-hmm.
right around the corner. They're in preview, but yeah, excited to join you today and show them all off.
Busy times. I was looking at a tweet from like Maddie, like May hit, and like, oh, this is the month.
Yeah,
Everything is
it's
going
getting
GA.
real.
It's getting real. Thank you for being here. Yeah, Brandon is the man. Let's see comments. Oh yeah, pain-driven development. Dan's been on vacation a lot, and I like it. Brandon is the man. So I think Sean was actually careful not to take away too much of your thunder for the community toolkit. So we are all in. I should see you have your desktop shared. So
Yeah.
let's bring that up. All right, and the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks so much, Sam. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Brandon Minnick, and here we'll be talking about the .NET MAUI Community Toolkits. So actually, I added an S here because there are a couple toolkits that I want to show off today that I know I'm a little biased because I'm one of the core maintainers on them, but every .NET MAUI developer should be using these toolkits. But before we jump into it, I do want to share a link that I have at the bottom of the slides today. This is a web page that I put together specifically for this talk, and it's where you can find everything we're going to cover. So that's where you can find links to all of the toolkits. They're all open source. You can find links to their documentation at docs.microsoft.com. I've included links to sample apps where you can see real code using the toolkits. That's also open source. And then if you want to keep learning more about all the toolkit awesomeness, I have links to blog posts that we've written that will help get you started and hopefully get you as excited as I am for it. And in the bottom left here, that's my Twitter handle. You'll also see it on my screen right below my face. This is the best way to reach me. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a tweet. My direct messages are always open. Or if you just want to chat about C#, .NET, used to work at Xamarin, so I love talking Xamarin stuff, or .NET MAUI stuff, feel free to come join the conversation over on Twitter. So let's jump into it because we have 3 libraries to show off today. And actually, speaking of which, Sam, how much time do we have now? What's our planned exit?
Well, yeah, we saved West Coast for the last, so you can take all the time you want.
Oh no! Don't tell me that. All right, we'll still try to keep it around 45 minutes.
Yeah,
But
and actually, before you begin, can I ask you something which I don't know if you know the answer for, but the community toolkits. One of the folks who help you folks out, Vlad Antonwick, if I'm saying his name right. He's out of Ukraine, right? Do you know if he's doing okay?
yes, yeah, it's definitely been tough. Vlad's one of our
Yeah.
top contributors to the repo. Yeah, he lives in Dnipro, which is one of the more protected cities in Ukraine, thankfully. He's still doing well, super high spirits, still safe. So we hope for continued success for Ukrainians and continued safety and security for Vlad. But it's certainly been a
Yeah.
rough couple months getting
Oh yeah, I
updates
can't
on
imagine.
him.
Yeah. Hopefully, sanity and order returns sooner than later.
Yes, that's the hope.
Yeah.
But right, so we have we have 3 toolkits, and you'll notice they all start with the community toolkit dot prefix. So we have CommunityToolkit.Maui, CommunityToolkit.Mvvm, and CommunityToolkit.Maui.Markup. These are all owned by the Community Toolkit GitHub organization. That also includes there's Windows Community Toolkits if you're doing Windows specific development. There's also just generic .NET Community Toolkits. So if you're just writing in .NET like we all are. You can leverage those, but these are the three that I recommend for every .NET MAUI developer out there. The goal around the toolkits is to improve your developer experience. The idea is, think about all that code that you've copy pasted between apps. You know, I've done it. I do it all the time. I still do it, even though I work on the community toolkits where, let's say I have a base view model and I create a new app. Well, I just copy paste a base view model from an old app and bring it in. Or maybe there's a converter I've created that inverts a Boolean. I copy paste that converter code into this app. So the idea is we want to take all that copy pasted code and put it in these toolkits so that you don't have to do that anymore. Help you write less code. And then we're also going to try and push the tools a little bit, show you some new stuff, see what you think, leverage things like source generators to also avoid using reflection to make sure performance is good. But let's jump right into it. And let's start by talking about CommunityToolkit.Maui. So as you can probably guess, this is a .NET MAUI focused toolkit. So we have all sorts of things in there. This is a NuGet package that is available today. We just pushed out our second release candidate, and essentially what we're doing is following the same cadence as the .NET MAUI team. So when they push out a new release candidate, we'll push out our new release candidate built on that one. We've been doing this for months, follow along the preview, so that's been fun because every time a new preview of .NET MAUI came out, there were breaking changes. We had to redo some things, push out a new release of the community toolkits, but it's certainly been fun and want to share with you some of our successes so far. So, right, let's start with alerts. So in .NET, the CommunityToolkit.Maui repo lives this sample app. So I'm going to go through this sample app because this is where you can find examples of everything that's also included in the library. So you can follow the link here at CodeTraveler.io/community-toolkit. That'll help you get to the open source repo for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. And then once you're there, yeah, you can run this sample app. You can copy paste its code to use in your apps. But yeah, let's show off.
Which, by the way, if I can make a comment, this is really well done. The sample app, it's a beautiful showcase of not just the features, but just like clean code, clean, well-written code.
Thanks. Yeah, that was actually that's part of our ulterior motive too, right? Is as the maintainers, we're the ones reviewing the PRs, making sure we keep the code quality up to par. And yeah, one of our goals is we want this sample app to be something that you can leverage, you can run with. So yeah, all the code uses dependency injection. It's using all of the .NET MAUI host builders. It's all using MVVM. So it's following all the best practices because we didn't want to provide code to you that you might then copy paste and maybe it works initially, but then you start getting a little deeper into it and that code falls apart. We don't want that to happen. So I appreciate the compliment, Sam. Yeah, so Snackbar. Snackbar, if you've ever done any Android development, might ring a bell. Basically, this is a snackbar. It's a little notification that appears at the bottom of the screen. It dismisses itself after a set period of time. And you can also, it has a little button on it you can click to dismiss it manually. You can also play around with Snackbar a little bit. So if you want to anchor it, like this was anchored to this button, you can also have that button change behaviors. So we can change the Snackbar button anytime that button's clicked. So that's a Snackbar. We call it an alert because it's not necessarily a UI that you're adding to your layouts. You're not going to use a Snackbar in your grid. Rather, Snackbars and toasts are alerts that pop up on the screen, kind of like when we say await display alert in .NET MAUI. So a toast is also similar to a Snackbar, but it doesn't have the button, and and that's about it. You can customize a little bit by changing the text and the colors and the font size. But yeah, toasts are one of those things that, like, let's say you have an app where you can save something to a database or save something to a backend. Sometimes you just want a nice little notification to the user to say, save successful, just to let them, give them that extra reassurance. And that's what we can leverage here with Toast.
And like the web side of things does this all over the place, like React and Android, they all have similar things. And what you're showing here, I mean, this is, you're running this on Mac Catalyst, right? So
Yes.
even though it's inspired from Android, it works consistently all across.
Yeah, and so that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because we use the native controls wherever they exist. So Toast and Snackbar, these are both Android things. iOS and Mac OS, Windows, they don't really have the concept of a toast built into the framework. So we actually created our own custom toast to mimic Android's behavior. But we essentially took Android's implementation and leveraged a lot of that for our API and how it should look and what different settings you should be able to tweak based on what Android allows you to do. And we built it from there. All right, so there's a ton of these. So behaviors, these are lots of fun behaviors. I'll just show off a couple of my favorites since there's probably too many here to go through all of them. But one of my favorites is this masked behavior. So this is super useful anytime you have to format a user's input. So we'll start with this example up here. If I just start typing, it'll automatically format it to look like the example here. So it should be letter, letter, hyphen, letter, letter, hyphen, letter, letter. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit A couple times. And right now it's adding it. Once we ran out of the mask length, it stopped adding any more characters. And these hyphens were automatically added. I didn't do anything as a user. So it makes it really easy to format things. So, social security numbers are a big thing in the US. And if you ever have to have a form where somebody needs to add a phone number in, they can just write the text and then it adds in the masking all around it and makes it super easy for us as developers because we get that all for free. Another favorite of mine is the max length reached behavior. These are super helpful. It basically gives or sets a maximum length for each input. So this can be used on entries, on editors, anything that ingests text. We can start typing, and right now it's set to a max of 6 characters. So if I just kind of mash the keyboard here, as soon as I hit 6 characters, it doesn't let me type any more characters in it. And then what's also cool is we can trigger commands based off of that max length reached event. So here we're hitting the max length and writing that text to the screen. This is another cool one where we hit the max length and it'll switch focus to the next entry. So again, super useful when you have data ingest forms. So maybe the phone number is going to be 9. How long's the phone number? 10? I forget. But yeah, as soon as somebody's done writing their phone number, we can jump them automatically to the next entry where they can just continue on and not have to tap the screen or tap next or do anything more than that. What's some other cool ones here? Ooh, multi-validation. Okay, this one's really cool. So we have a bunch of validation behaviors. Like behind me, you can see characters validation, email validation. So it validates it's an email address. You can also combine all these validations. And this is one of the coolest examples here where we do password validation. So down here, it says we need to have at least 1 digit, 1 uppercase, 1 symbol. It's got to be at least 8 characters. And when I start typing, it automatically says these are false. And that's true because I haven't given it a digit yet. But if I type the number 1, then we've passed that validation. But you'll see my text is still red because we can set a style based on when the input's valid and based on when the input is not valid or invalid. And right now, that style says if the input's invalid, that text has got to be red. So we'll keep typing and I'll give it a uppercase letter, I'll give it a symbol, and then we got to hit at least 8 characters, and then boom. Now we have validated to true on all of our multiple validations, and the text automatically turned green. Now, what's probably the most exciting thing for me is think about how much code that would take to write that yourself. Like, do all these things, have all these actions firing off, and have everything work together with no bugs, right? Well, I want to show. Let's see.
And
Yes.
hopefully this code is something you are reusing at least within your app, abstracting it away, and hopefully across apps. So now it can all be what, a few lines.
Right. Yeah, and this is literally it. So this is the code for this sample page. And what we've done, we've just told it that we want to have this multi-validation behavior attached to this entry. And we gave it the invalid style. We gave it the valid style, which in our case was red text if it's invalid, green text if it is valid. You can change the flags. So right now we're saying validate on value changed. But you can choose how and when the validation happens. So maybe you don't want to validate the text until the user stops typing or unfocuses the control. You can set whichever flag you want to leverage for that. But right now I have it so anytime a letter's typed, it'll immediately validate it, which I think this is really cool. And then yeah, we just add in whatever validation behaviors we want. And so in this case, we said we need a characters validation to make sure that we have a digit for the character type and that there's at least one of them. We have another uppercase validation, so make sure that the character type is an uppercase letter and there's at least one of those. There's at least one non-alphanumeric symbol. There's at least 8 characters. And so in what's this, 15, maybe 20 lines of code, we have this really slick feature that makes our app just that much better, right? Like we don't need to do this. We could do the validation once the user clicks submit, but here the user gets that feedback in real time, makes their life easier, and then it just makes our apps look more polished, more professional. And the best part is with the toolkit, it's just a couple lines of code.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Let's keep rolling because we have even more converters to talk about. All sorts of converters. And again, these are probably ones that you've copy pasted from app to app before. I know I have, like things like an inverted bool, right? Like how often have you ever had to say, if not busy, but you point it to the is busy property and then you have to invert it. To create that, you have to write your own iValue converter. You have to do all the casting because iValue converters aren't type safe. Everything's objects. They're a pain. So hopefully you can leverage these and reduce a lot of that friction. So out of the box, we have all of these converters. There's some really cool ones like this bool to object allows you to trigger off of a Boolean value and convert it to whatever kind of object you want. In this case, we're showing off colors. So like if this checkbox is checked, then the color is green. If it's not checked, then the color is red. And you can also use these buttons here to do the same thing. Byte array to image source. This one's really cool because images can be downloaded as byte arrays. So think HTTP client, right? If we say client.get as byte array async, hopefully I got that right. We can point it at an image on anywhere on the internet, and it'll automatically convert that byte array to an image source. So when I say download image, it goes and fetches it, and the code behind this is literally just calling client.get byte array async. And so we don't have to worry about like, how do you convert a byte array into a memory stream into an image source? I don't know. I have to look it up every time. So we created a converter for you. And so we got all sorts of goodies in here.
You do. And while you're talking about it, in the chat room is lurking our good friend, Gerald. Where's Luis?
Gerald.
Hey, Gerald.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and it's late for you. You're up. Gerald, by the way, was a speaker last year when we did. Last year, so Brandon, it was surfing in Maui. We were kind of over the surface. Today we are snorkeling. Maybe next year is going to be like, we go like deep diving inside of
scuba?
Maui. Yeah,
Scuba and Maui.
scuba and surfing. And so Gerald is he's a YouTube star. He doesn't hang out with mere mortals like us anymore. But Gerald has been making amazing videos on dotnet maui. If you haven't caught up, that's his handle on YouTube's. And I think in the last couple of videos he has been talking about their community toolkits a lot more. So thank you. And Gerald is also one of the maintainers of this. Thank you for all the work that goes in.
That's right. Yeah. So thanks, Gerald. Good to see you, man. So let's show off one more converter. This one is called the text case converter. And this is one of my favorites because how many times have you had to convert text to be either uppercase or lowercase or title case? Well, this converter just does it for you. So I'm just going to type in a bunch of letters here, and we see that the sample has converted it automatically to uppercase. I'll use this all the time, especially for title case, because title case requires a little bit more code to write. Like with strings, you can always say like .to lower or .to upper. So this one's not too impressive, but yeah, when you start doing like first name, last name, where the beginning letters should be uppercase, then title case is really, really helpful, especially for when you're saving data and you want it to be good before necessarily saving it to a database or anything like that. So tons and tons of converters. We also have one extension so far. But this one's really cool. This is actually one of my favorites because it adds in the color animation. And so what we have is the ability to transition from a color to another color. So for example, when I click this animate button, we'll see the background of this, I think this is a label here, change. And we'll also see the text color up here change. And it'll change based on whatever the new color is, whatever rate we want to do. So if we want to go to blue, and we could have it last a little longer because it looks so pretty. Yeah, we'll keep linear easing. Then you can see that brown kind of gradually convert to a blue. So this is really cool. This is one where we are leveraging source converters to do. So the source code for this is also was also really fun to implement because you can see here we're referencing an iText style. So .NET MAUI is just full of interfaces now, right? Like there's iButtons, there's iEntries, there's everything. And one of those is iText style. So if anything has text that can be styled, then text color 2 is the extension method and it'll work on it. So you can animate anything, which is really, really cool. And we did that all using source generators, which was fun for me because I got to learn how to write source generators. All right, let's keep jamming along. Layouts. We only have one so far, but it's a pretty cool one. It's a uniform items layout. And so if you've ever, think about, it's kind of like a grid where maybe you want to have everything in the grid the same height, the same width. You can do that. So we can say if we want maximum columns of 2 or maximum columns of 1 or 1 row, you can do that. And then as you add things, it'll also add it accordingly. So we can see this maximum rows is 1. It keeps adding boxes to the end of the 1 row, or maximum columns 1. It keeps making this column even bigger. So that's a really neat one if you ever just want to lay things out on the screen that are always going to be uniform in size and width, height and width. And then these views, these have been a ton of work. So shout out to Vlad for the drawing view and to Pedro Jesus for the pop-up view. These were actually the first ones we added that use the new .NET MAUI handlers. So these were a lot of fun to make because we got to figure out like how do you use handlers in .NET MAUI. But the good news is they're all totally native. So let's see if we go to, let's start with the drawing view.
No, Pedro is here, by the way.
No, Pedro, hey! There's our star of the pop-up view. So yeah, drawing view gives us a canvas that we can essentially paint on. So this is a canvas. We gave it the background color of blue and yellow, and then we're drawing a green line on it. And we can have all sorts of different options. So when I finished just now, we have it also basically take a snapshot, and we can make an image out of that. Let's see, if I turn on multi-line mode, then I can spell stuff out. Oh, shoot, I was going to spell Maui, but I already have a typo. So you turn that into an A, there we go. And so we can do all sorts of crazy things, like, and then we could generate an image with random lines. We could display or generate an image based off of what we drew. So this one's really cool if you ever need something like a signature pad, or if you just ever want to have like a blank canvas to allow somebody to draw all over, they can use Drawing View.
Yeah, this is cool. And you know what, this is it's funny, like when you get down to this kind of work where you're literally drawing pixels, you're giving them a canvas and you're creating these custom controls, you're also keeping folks like us on our toes, so like when we have like Telerik UI for .NET, like we watch what you folks are doing, and at some point we're like, yeah, you don't need that anymore, the Community Toolkit is doing it. So thanks for pushing us and keeping us moving forward.
Hey, happy to help, and I appreciate the compliment, because Telerik, everything's super high quality, super high bar, and that's what we're going for as well. But at the same time, the Community Toolkit is just something that we do on our nights and weekends. So this is
kudos for that.
Yeah, thanks. So this is a more of a pet project. We have the core maintainers, but really it's created by the community for the community. So we are always looking out for more features, more pull requests, definitely bug reports if you find them. And yeah, we have unit tests backing up everything and samples of everything. So hopefully it's super helpful. But circling back to Pedro, he made this pop-up and it's really cool. This is one of my favorite demos. I shouldn't have done that yet. Let's pretend like I didn't move that X. So if I tap show pop-up, we can have a little pop-up appear anchored to this red X. But if I move it, it'll still appear anchored to that red X. So yeah, pop-up is exactly what you expect, right? It's something that appears on the screen. You can anchor it to a view that's already on the screen, or you could just have it appear. Let's say we have a whole multiple pop-ups page where you can see all the different pop-ups. So like this one has buttons in it, and the buttons will close the pop-up. Or if you ever wanted to toggle the size of the pop-up dynamically, we got examples showing off how to do that as well. So all sorts of goodness in the sample app.
But before we move on to other things, the chat room here, our good friend Foolish Namel is asking, can I write a fragment shader or pixel shader in .NET MAUI? Can you explain, like, what do you mean by a pixel shader, Foolish Namel? Or maybe Brandon, because I'm
definitely not an expert. If Vlad was here, who created Drawing View, he'd definitely be able to chime in. But yeah, I mean, there's the whole Maui graphics library.
Yeah.
And I would recommend starting there, but I'm definitely not a graphics expert.
No, and like you're saying, like these things are hardcore engineering things. Like I think like 2 speakers prior to you, we had an engineer from our team stop by, and he was using graphics because like when we get down to that low of level, like we are trying to customize things on each platform, and you need to know what you're doing essentially.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and the cool thing with graphics, Microsoft.Maui.graphics namespace is it's basically cross-platform graphics. So
yes,
again, and you do it once, it'll work everywhere. That being said, Drawing View does use the native controls. So if you dig into the source code, you'll see the native iOS points and pixels and all that low-level stuff. But we did cheat a little bit because WinUI for Windows hasn't brought in the drawing library we need to do it natively. So actually, Drawing View's implementation on Windows is using Microsoft.Maui.graphics. Fun fact.
Yeah. Okay. So Fool is explaining something, and I honestly don't know. Like you can do texture low level and push things off to the GPU as each pixel is drawn. I don't know. I don't know. This is really hardcore stuff. Few teraflop stuff. Wow. Computing available to you, then yes.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? All right, so we're going to pivot to the next toolkit. This is CommunityToolkit.Mvvm, or the MVVM toolkit, as we call it. This is amazing. I wish I knew about this sooner. We'll say back in my Xamarin days, because it's been around forever. But
It is,
it
yeah.
it contains so many good things that if you're doing MVVM, you need this. And so I highlighted one of my favorite things here because the new version, they just released version 8. It's available in preview right now. Version 8 comes with all these cool attributes that as soon as I saw these, I was like, I gotta have it. I didn't know I needed that, but I gotta have it. And really what it does, it helps us get rid of a lot of duplicate code or boilerplate code that comes with MVVM. So for example,
you end up writing so much of this by hand over and over again.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you think about commands, we have the example here where we're just adding the iCommand attribute above a method called greetUser. Well, what the MVVM toolkit does, using source generators, it'll create that command for you and add in all of this. So it'll assign this method call. It knows that greetUser needs an object user passed into it. So it'll create all that for you. And what you get is, you can see it here on the left. It creates a command using the method name and then appends command to it. So this greetUser command was just auto-created, auto-generated using source generators thanks to this iCommand attribute. So now I don't have to create public iCommand blah, 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 and assign it. I can just slap an attribute on a method and then it'll immediately be available to me as a public command that I can use in my bindings. This is probably the most amazing one to me, this observable property attribute. So think about what we have to do every time we need a property in our view model, right? We create, we have to first create a backing field that looks like this. Then we create a public property. And then anytime that public property changes, we have to call iNotifyPropertyChanged. Observable property does all of that for us. So what observable property does is it'll create that public property. And what it does, it takes the name for your field and then just capitalizes the first letter. So down here, we can see that full name is referencing a variable with first name with a capital F. We didn't write that code. That capital F first name was auto-generated for us by this observable property attribute. And anytime we can set the value for first name, and anytime that changes, it's going to call iNotifyPropertyChanged. And so again, think about all the code you can rip out of your view model just by slapping this attribute on your backing field. It's incredible. I love it.
Yeah,
and
also notify is so nice. And
yeah,
the chat room was talking about it. It doesn't matter what the question is. Source code generators are the answer. There's a lot of goodness in here.
They're definitely the future.
Okay, so I have a quick comment and a question. So let's do the question first. So this is super cool, and this may be an awkward question. So for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkits, I get the MAUI, I get the markup extensions, but isn't some of this MVVM stuff built into the .NET toolkit as well? Or should we use like either one, whichever one that makes sense for the type of app?
I'm not sure. Because there is a generic .NET toolkit.
There is.
So like MVVM toolkits focused on MVVM, obviously. So that's why we have all this observable property, iCommand, binding stuff. There is a generic one that is not doesn't have anything to do with MVVM, and you can use that as well. I haven't actually played around with that too much myself, but excited.
I think they're borrowing ideas either from you folks or it's the other way around, but actually they have some of this MVVM in it now. So maybe that's for the .NET apps which are not MAUI, or maybe it's for WPF or something else, but it's very similar ideas. And so I think you can use whichever one that makes sense. Also in the chat room, Furush Namal was asking, where do we see this generated code? It is in the I forget the file extension. You can see in the build files, right? Do you remember which ones?
Yeah, I'm trying. So I'm on my Mac right now, but I'm trying to spin up Windows on a virtual machine real quick because you can see it in Visual Studio.
Yes.
In your Solution Explorer, you can actually...
the object folders, which are also string. Yeah, so...
Yep.
file.g.cs. Yes. So, and I think it may not be just one file. It's a whole bunch of files based on every view that you're using it, or every view model, but you can see it all.
Yeah, well, depends how the source generator is written, but yeah, every source generator in this case. Actually, let's see if I can show. I think the drawing view model in our sample app was the first one to add in one of these attributes. Yeah. So, oh, that was Windows trying to load on me. So, yeah, what we see here is that it shows the. Let's see if I can get rid of some red squiggles. So we just add partial class to it, and then what the source generator does is creates another partial class, in this case called drawing view model, and that's where it puts all this information. So, yeah, like Gerald pointed out, the manual way to do it is we can open up. Whoop, one sec, let me bring Finder up here. Come on. There we go. So yeah, if we jump into the obj folder, then yeah, we have the generated files. And let's see, Community Toolkit. One of these will have what we're looking for. Let's change this to a list so we can actually read it. Whoops. There we go. And so one of these should be drawing view. Yep, there it is. Drawing view model. And I wonder what will happen if we crack this open real quick. Boom. Look at that. So yeah, there's our drawing view model partial class, other partial class. And yeah, this is the generated property called logs. And you can see it does all the on logs changing, on property changing, assigning the value. It just does all of this for us, which is so cool. So cool to be able to rip out, what is this, 30 lines of code from our view models. Yeah, I love it. Nice.
and you don't know, partial is the best C# feature. Yeah, it's just kind of, merging all of those things together to make you one full class, and you don't have to write any of this. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. And let's, sorry, I was going to go back to one last thing that was mentioned. Fuchsnavel is talking about WPF and Maui, and this is fair and relevant. I can't take names here, but we actually know of a very big, Microsoft shop, an enterprise client, which is taking their full-on WPF app and moving it onto .NET MAUI because they want Mac support and they also want, mobile support. So some of the comparisons, I get it, but you have to understand, like, some of the pixel shading that Fuchsnavel was talking about. WPF has 16 years of history that it's sitting on, and it's raw desktop, right? So it's full power. And .NET MAUI kind of started with the mobile first mindset, and we are building up on it, right? So yeah, some things may not be apples to apples, but it's a start, and we're going to just keep on building on top of this.
That's right. All right, so let's jump over to the third and final toolkit of the day. This one is my favorite because, fun fact, I don't like. Yeah, I don't like using XAML. I've got nothing against it, but when I used to work at Xamarin back before Microsoft acquired us, and so when I joined Xamarin as an employee, I was so excited because I was like, yeah, you can do everything in C#. And so I started just writing all my UI code in C#, and because you can. And so
you were the only one.
Well, fun fact, Xamarin, the first version of Xamarin.Forms didn't even include XAML. So
yeah, Xamarin.Forms was all C#.
So yeah, my recommendation is always, we shouldn't be forcing anybody to learn XAML, because I don't use XAML and I've been very successful. I've got apps in the App Store. I've been making Xamarin Maui apps for 6-7 years now, and I do it all in C#. So if you already know XAML and you're familiar with it, great, keep using it. But learning mobile, learning Maui is hard enough already without having to learn another language. And so you don't have to. We've got this CommunityToolkit.Maui.Markup NuGet package that you can add into your app, and it makes writing your UI in C# even better because it gives us all these fluent UI extension methods. So certain things like if you want to add text to a button, you can just say .text. If you want to center that button both horizontally and vertically, all you have to say is .center. Bindings become a lot easier because we can get type safe bindings where we can actually include converters in our bindings. We don't even have to make converters anymore with the C# extension methods. So we can say, in this case, we're binding a button's is enabled property to the length of an entry. So we created entry 1 up above. It's not it's not visible here in this snippet, but we have an entry called entry 1. So that's the source for our binding. And we say, anytime that length changes, let me know. Because what I'll do is anytime the length changes, I'll check to see if it's not 0. And if it's not 0, well, buttons is enabled property is now true. So think about something like where you need to type in your first name, last name, and click submit. Well, I don't want that submit button to be enabled until you've typed something. So as long as you've typed at least one character in there, we'll enable the button. And yeah, being able to do converters like this inline is super, super helpful. There's no need to create an I-value converter in another class and do all the casting because everything can be just done inline. It's all type safe. And yeah, we were talking about... Oh,
no,
go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, so we were talking about, XAML versus C# a little bit earlier, but you can do both. And we actually do that in our Community Toolkit sample app. A lot of these pages are done, in XAML, but we have a couple pages that are done all in C#. So here's our base collection view, getting red squiggles. We'll just pretend like those aren't on the screen. But things like creating a new grid is really cool with the C# markup extensions because we can define our rows using actual names. We don't just say like star 12 and then hope that we remember that the first one is
you are
0.
You're making us feel old. Like Dan and me, and probably Gerald, we have done years and years of XAML, but between WPF and UWP and Silverlight and Xamarin.Forms, it's like solid 20 years of XAML you're talking about. But this is so much more fluent, and you probably get much better IntelliSense out of Visual Studio because it's all C#.
Oh yeah, better IntelliSense, better refactoring because if you've ever changed a property name that was bound, so say in XAML you have a binding to a property in a view model, and then maybe a couple weeks later you go change that view model's property to change it from name to first name. Well, you just broke your binding in XAML. Yeah. Whereas in C#, since everything's in C#, you can just use the refactoring tools. You can just right click on it and say rename, and it'll update everywhere. So yeah, and I like how this reads too, because we are putting, this is actually, let's see if I can pull up the sample app side by side. So this is the data template that we use for these rows. And so to get this kind of card view, we basically give 12 points of padding on the top and bottom, 24 points of padding on left and right. And then we put this content in the middle. And yeah, to put that content in the middle, we just say, we have a new card, which is we've defined down here as a frame. And we just say it's going to be in the row called content and the column called content. We don't have to say it goes in row 0. Oh, shoot. No, that's row 1. And that's something that always tripped me up when I was making grids back in the day was I would always be off by 1 at least once.
So in the meantime, chat room is talking about the red squiggles, and Gerald already answered it because Visual Studio 2022 for Mac is on RC, but the .NET MAUI support is still in preview, so it gets a little upset with us at times.
Yeah,
it's all fine. Yeah,
I'm on I'm on an internal preview. So this is
add on to that.
This is hot off the main branch of Visual Studio for Mac. So
it's when your engineers give you a version of Visual Studio in a zip drive, things are hot off the press.
Yeah. All right. So
what else I was going to mention? Oh, and could you go back to the code here, right here, sure. Actually. Sorry, in your PowerPoint, the button. Why does it need a bind function? Why do you need to say button in the bind function?
So so some of this you don't have to, the answer to your question is because in the converters, those are using an int and a bool, converting back and forth. And we did not specify the type in the converters. So if we had said that this is int length and returns bool is not 0, then we wouldn't need to do any of this type. We wouldn't include any of this typing at all, because the compiler can just figure it out. Because, but probably more specifically to answer your question, button refers to the fact that we're binding to a button. But that can be figured out automatically. You don't always have to say button. It just depends on how you write, say, your converters down here or what you're binding to. This is a very explicit, everything's written out kind of example.
And it's actually like a different mindset. Like for us, maybe it reads a little different, but like having done like a little bit of like Comet, which is the experimental, .NET MAUI thing, which does MVU, and talking to some folks who do like React Native, like this comes much more naturally to a lot of like web devs who are used to like the fluent style. I mean, this may be different from us coming from a XAML background, but it's all a matter of, choices and, letting developers do however they want to build the visual tree.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, you're not bad for using XAML, and you're not bad for only using C#. You're not bad for using both. All these are just options. So whatever works best for you, whatever works best for your team, use it, leverage it. I just want you to know that this exists, and I'm also its biggest fan. I love the markup extensions.
You have a success story. Like you've shipped, successful apps with just all C#. So kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so let's wrap it up because we're a little over. Whoops. And what I want to do is just show off a little bit of documentation. So this right here, this is the website that I put together. So if you go to CodeTraveler.io/community-toolkit, then this is that landing page where I'm saying you can find everything from the talk. So you can see we got links, we got more links, MVVM toolkit links, open source samples, slides from today's presentation, blog posts. But in here is where we can find links to the documentation. So if you want to learn more about the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, you can find all the docs here on docs.microsoft.com. So yes, this is a community effort, but it is done with the backing of Microsoft. Microsoft just doesn't pay any engineers to work on it, is really what the distinction is. So it's all volunteer, but because we do it in partnership with the .NET MAUI team, with Microsoft, all of our documentation appears on docs.microsoft.com. So this is where you can come in, you can check out all these behaviors, you can see examples we have in all the docs. And it's also kind of cool to also see, we include examples for if you want to do it in C# or if you want to do it with the C# markup extension, just how much kind of cleaner and tighter the code is between them. We got it all documented. We do still have a couple PRs open for the docs. Plan is to get all those done before MAUI GAs in a couple weeks, but would be more than happy if you want to jump in, because these docs are open source too. So you can always click this edit button at the top and you can just jump right in and rewrite the docs, fix our typos, fix our examples, whatever you want.
Now, kudos to you. Docs take time to write them well.
Oh yeah, this was a whole effort because nothing at big companies is easy, but yeah, this was about a year's worth of working with the legal team, working with the marketing team, working with the docs team, working with the engineering teams, getting everybody in sync, get everything improved, just so that we can create a cool community toolkit. But totally worth it. So glad we got it ready for release. But Sam, if you haven't already, make sure we tell everybody let's bookmark this link, because this is where you can find everything that we chatted about today. So if you have any friends, coworkers, family members who couldn't make it, you can just send them this link and they'll get up and running on all of our awesome community toolkits.
Yeah, I'm trying to type something here, but this is really good that you actually put together a page where we can find all the things. And this is no small amount of work. So big kudos to all of you who put this together. And I think Gerald, that you talk about this quite a bit as well. And then we have seen this in the Xamarin Community Toolkit. Like this is this is like, if you have big ideas, this is the playground, right? You start implementing things, and if you do something well, and if it's needed, then it moves into Xamarin, or maybe it moves into .NET MAUI, right? So how cool would it be to have your code in .NET MAUI? So this is your path in.
And that is our biggest goal. We want to promote as many features as we can out of the toolkit and into .NET or into .NET MAUI, bring it into the core libraries. And we can leverage the Community Toolkit to show that value and also kind of battle test it too as well. So at some point in the future, maybe we'll see some of these converters pop up out of the box in .NET MAUI, or maybe we'll bring drawing view or pop up into .NET MAUI. That would be amazing.
Yeah, indeed. And Brandon, thank you for all that you do as well. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day. So I'm going to bring your desktop down. And one last thing, folks, if you haven't already done this, and let's see, is my clicker working? There we go. Okay. So I know Dan Siegel has probably done this a dozen times now, but we do have a form, and we are giving away, some gift cards. So if you haven't already done it, we'll draw some time by the end of today, and we'll email you. So get in there and grab some gift cards. Why not, right? All right. So, Brandon, what are you looking forward to in the next month or so?
Oh goodness. Well, getting some sleep. That'll be nice. It's been a slog. It's been a lot of work. But yeah, no, GA is going to be really exciting because that is kind of the starting point, right? That's where it's like, okay, well, time to start porting over some apps. And, in the next couple years, we'll have to move, or we should be moving all of our Xamarin.Forms apps to .NET MAUI. And I know I've personally been waiting till GA to start doing that because it's going to be a bit of an effort. And I loved Luis's presentation right before me talking about how library maintainers can bring their libraries to .NET MAUI, because I think that's that is going to be one of the biggest blockers is if you're using a NuGet package or an open source library, it has to be ported to .NET MAUI for you to consume it in your .NET MAUI app. And so make sure all our library maintainers out there are porting over their libraries so that we can consume in .NET MAUI apps. But yeah, we've got some time. We've got 2-ish years because Forms is going to already supports the current version of iOS and Android. The next version of iOS and Android will be coming out in, probably just weeks. I think Apple's announcing it soon. So Forms will support those next versions. And I think word on the street is Forms support will continue through 2023.
Yeah, November 2023. Because the last major Forms release was November 2021. So 2 years.
Yeah, and so iOS and Android will also be out, or V next of iOS and Android will also be out before November 2023 as well. So we got a couple versions, a couple years of continued support to port everything over. But yeah, don't wait. Library maintainers, port those to MAUI, because somebody might do it for you, and you might not be the guy anymore. So.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, not to make light, because I mean, it takes work. It's honestly like engineering, or especially like open source communities. And Dan will tell you, with Prism and Prism for Maui, it's a lot of work. And for us as well, for folks who build UIs, we do have engineering teams, but you want to do things right. Like with .NET MAUI, yes, you can do some compatibility, but you want to be, as native as you can on the platform, do handlers. So all of that takes work, but your house is not on fire. So, the first GA, let's get it out. And so we can all, get going.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely took that opportunity here with the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, because like you mentioned, there is a Xamarin Community Toolkit that's focusing on Xamarin.Forms. And could we have just copy pasted all that over? Sure. But we chose to take that opportunity because of the breaking changes. We could actually re-implement a lot of things. So yeah, everything's done natively with handlers. It's all using all the Maui best practices. We even have there's a we'll say a fourth NuGet package that I didn't really call out, but it's CommunityToolkit.Maui.Core, and that actually contains, that's essentially our interface layer. So just like the core Maui namespace, our CommunityToolkit.Maui.Core is structured so that in the future, if say we want to build a Comet toolkit, we can do that, and we can run it off of CommunityToolkit.Maui.Core. So we've got big plans. If anybody wants to join the toolkit team, or maybe you want to lead the Comet toolkit or the Blazor toolkit, reach out to me. Let me know. We'll bring you on board, and we'll start growing this amazing ecosystem even more.
Yeah. More help the better, because Dan wants to take his next vacation. It's hard, on open source. Like you don't see commits or PRs for a while, and people are like, "Is this dead?" Like, no, it's not dead. I've just been on vacation. It's hard. So yeah, all the help we can get from the community matters. So, all right. So I think it's a day. We started at like 11 Eastern, so it's been close to 4 hours, and it's been an amazing amount of content and fun. It's nothing like folks sharing their passion, and just folks are excited. So it's great to be able to bring on so many folks and chat, and across I think we had like 5 different time zones, which is great. Hope you have a great rest of your day. But otherwise, thank you so much. And Brandon, thank you again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Sam.
All right. Thank you.